The Ghost Pen. It was an old, leather-bound notebook that caught Lucy's attention. She had been exploring the dusty corners of the second-hand bookstore when the glint of something unusual beneath a pile of forgotten paperbacks pulled her in. It was a pen, oddly beautiful, with a polished black barrel and an intricate gold nib, resting next to a small journal. The pen looked vintage, but not like anything she had seen before. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper seemed to rise from the ink inside it. Lucy, a young writer desperate for inspiration, picked up the pen and flipped open the journal. The pages were yellowed with age, the writing on them strange and looping, as if written by someone trying to escape an invisible force. Without thinking, she bought both the pen and the journal, eager to begin her new project. The moment she stepped out of the store, the air seemed to change, the world feeling heavier, darker. She dismissed it as nothing, just her imagination playing tricks, or the weight of the ominous book in her bag. At home, Lucy sat at her desk, ready to write. The journal was old, its leather cover cracked with age, and the pen, now in her hand, felt strangely cold against her fingers. But when she placed it to the paper, the pen moved with an eerie smoothness. The ink spilled onto the page like liquid shadows, each word flowing effortlessly, as though the pen itself knew what needed to be written. The first line appeared on its own. The pen writes the story of the writer, whether they want it to or not. A shiver ran down Lucy's spine, but she couldn't stop. The words pulled her in, and she kept writing, her hand guided by some unseen force. The story unfolded as if from the depths of a nightmare. The writer sat in the dark room, the pen hovering in the air before them, moving of its own will. With each word it wrote, the writer's mind began to unravel, the ink a dark poison that twisted their thoughts. Lucy's hand trembled. She wasn't writing this. Something was writing it. And as she looked down, she saw the pen's tip hover above the page, dripping ink, but it was no longer her hand holding it. Her pulse quickened. The next line appeared. Soon, the writer could not remember where they ended and the story began. Lucy dropped the pen, but it remained on the page, a dark, cold stain on the paper. Her hand reached for the journal, desperate to stop the madness, but as she touched the cover, it burned her fingers. The words were alive now, pulsing in the air around her. She backed away, but the room was closing in. The air grew thick, suffocating, as the whispers from the journal grew louder. "You must finish the story," they seemed to say, as if in warning. Her heart raced as the world began to fade, her surroundings distorting, blurring into the black ink that flowed across the page. The room twisted and writhed, becoming the dark, hollow space described in the journal. The walls seemed to stretch, the corners of the room growing darker, deeper. She could feel it now, a presence, an entity that had been waiting for her. A thing that had lived within the ink of the pen, bound to the words it wrote. It was hungry, and it was drawing closer. The next line on the page appeared with a sudden jolt. The writer's soul will be consumed, their story never to end. They will become part of the pen, and the pen will write forever. Lucy screamed and tried to tear herself away from the desk, but it was too late. The ink seeped from the journal, creeping up her arms, over her body, drowning her in darkness. The whispers grew deafening, and in that moment, she understood, the pen had never been a tool. It was a trap, a prison for anyone foolish enough to wield it. Her vision blurred, and she felt her body disintegrating, becoming one with the story. She could feel herself fading from existence, her mind slipping away. The final thought she had was a horrible realization. She had become part of the tale. And as her last breath left her body, the pen wrote its final line. And the ghost of the writer remains, watching from the page, unable to escape the story they wrote. The bookshop would find her empty desk the next morning, the journal open, the pen resting beside it. The whispers, though, would continue, faint and forgotten by the living, waiting for the next writer to take up the cursed pen. Thanks for watching.